It's a well-known old joke that the Holy Roman Empire was neither Holy Roman nor an empire, and the strategic gas reserve suffers from a similar misnomer. Our continued dependence on fossil fuels for energy security is not strategic, and the gas that will be stored in the envisioned facility will be far from a reserve. This gas from the very outset will become part of our everyday energy mix. And I've highlighted this many times in the chamber here and by my Labour Party colleague Ciara Ahern in the Dáil. LNG, and this is why it will be used in as our complete energy mix, is because LNG requires venting in order to remain usable and safe. It will either need to be vented into the atmosphere or vented into the system to be used. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to vent gas, which is acquired at such a cost to the economy and to the earth, into the atmosphere. Therefore, we're going to vent it into the system. We're going to use the gas, and this is the logical thing to do once you have the gas and it needs to be used. And the problem with this is, though, when you vent the gas, you need to refill the tank. In order to maintain a 7-day supply of LNG, we will need to replenish this floating storage unit at least 6 times every year. So then it's not a reserve. It is intended to be part of the general energy mix, and even if it is only used at an absolute minimum level to keep it safe, we will discharge the daily equivalent of 10 to 30 gigawatts of hours of energy into the national network. It is clear that the environmental arguments are failing to have any influence whatsoever over this government. The influence of the Green Party is severely missed, and the deal that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael did with the rural independents really is as bad for the environment as many of us feared, particularly where I live in the northwest. There's no coherent strategic thinking on the environmental emergency in which we find ourselves. Does the economic strategy make sense? The economic case for LNG terminal was made in April 2024 at a period when the price of LNG delivered to the EU was on a downward trajectory. The price per megawatt hour being just under €23 in February 2024. It reached in March 2026, just 2 years later, €55.20, an increase of double and then nearly half again. The experience of Germany, who spent an initial €2.5 billion on 4 FSRUs, shows that the cost spiralled and they have to keep committing to a total of €4 billion to keep them operational, with no benefit to the German consumer in terms of electricity prices. There has never been a clearer case of supply and demand affecting price and the impact which conflict in oil-producing regions has upon the price of energy. If the economic case made strategic sense in April 2024, it does not make sense in Trump's 2026. It has never made sense to have a floating terminal of gas in terms of military securities. Attacks on Russian and Qatari LNG infrastructure have clearly demonstrated the truth of this assertion. It does not make sense to be dependent on LNG from the Middle East, and it does not make strategic sense to make ourselves even more dependent upon America than we already are. What does make strategic sense is to invest rapidly in indigenous renewables in a combination of offshore and onshore wind, along with solar and tidal energy, and when the wind blows or the sun shines, save that surplus as a reserve. Gas, particularly LNG, acquired by fracking, does not make sense as a strategic reserve. We need to see action, and fast action, not on a strategic gas reserve, but on a strategic renewable reserve. And I really hope, Minister, that you will listen to this. I'm like a broken record in here talking about this because it affects me so much where I live in the northwest.